slaves out there. Thunderlips is here. In the flesh, baby.
Quiet, numbskulls, I'm broadcasting.
Hey kids, welcome to Grumpy Nostalgia, the Second Look Cinema podcast, the show where we go back to the blockbuster new release wall of our memories, grab a copy off the shelf, pop it in the old VCR, and see what time has done to it. I'm Justin, that's Mike.
Howdy.
And together we're here to help navigate all the landmines littered down memory lane. So Mike, this is a fun one this week.
Yeah, a little more upbeat than, say, Battlefield Earth, perhaps.
Yeah, this is like a comfort movie for me, really. We talked a lot about the 80s in our previous podcast, and we talked a lot about Sylvester Stallone in our previous podcast, so we thought, why not just combine the two? I'll put my peanut butter in your chocolate, Mike. Right. We'll just combine the two, and we'll talk about a movie that captures both of those wonderful things. We're going to talk about Rocky III from 1982.
Lovely.
You know, a lot of people ask us, why don't you do the movies that have sequels? Why don't you do them in order? And I think the answer to that is pretty simple. Shut up. That's why. Get your own podcast. But no, we just kind of randomly pick things, and if we went in a sequence or an order, that would suggest some sort of discipline or scheduling, and we don't have that. So keep our edge, Mike. We're rebels.
It just hit me. Why did we do Jurassic Park 2 instead of the first or the third one?
I think we covered that.
I guess so.
Shut up. Shut up. We'll leave that to the Good Movie podcast.
All right.
All right, so this was 40 years ago, Mike.
40? Oh, my God. Okay.
Yeah, we were still preteens. And I think any male of our age that their parents had HBO are incredibly bonded to this movie. It's essentially raised me as a child. It was on HBO probably 4 or 5 times a day. Probably seen this movie countless times as a child. So,
Yeah. I saw it at least twice in the theater, which is for me is a rarity for see anything more than once. Wow. This one was totally different. As a kid, you wanted to see the good guy beat the bad guy, and it was good fun. Okay,
well, let's just kind of jump right into it. Speaking of good guys, so this was directed by Sylvester Stallone. It was also written by Sylvester Stallone. So Sly writes and directs a lot of his movies, including all the Rocky movies, Rambo, Cobra, Cliffhanger. And then we start kind of devolving into Rhinestone and Staying Alive, which is the only movie he directed but did not star in, Mike.
Too bad.
He gave that to
John Travolta stepped in for him, I guess.
Yeah, but he gave a lot of responsibility to his brother Frank in that movie, and, well, the rest is history.
We'll mention Frank later, perhaps.
We got a lot to talk about our Tombstone co-star here. Frank.
Forgot about that, yes.
Frank. So, Mike, why don't we just kind of jump in? You want to kind of go do that thing where you talk about who was in the movie?
Sure. Everybody should know that, like you say, Sylvester Stallone starred in his movie, and he directed it and wrote it, and he brought in, a lot of the same faces we saw in the first 2 Rockies, if you were lucky enough to see 1 and 2, which work really well together as a pair. This is the character he, created and was kind of born to play. Unfortunately, his Rocky persona seems to show up too much in some of his later movies, like we saw in Cliffhanger and perhaps a little bit Demolition Man. There's just,
Yeah.
This particular character, he's, kind of a punch-drunk, boxer from Brooklyn or Philadelphia, as a case of Rocky, is perfect,
Yeah.
But like I said, he brings in some of the familiar faces, like Burgess Meredith is his trainer, Mick. Cut me, Mick. And,
Love Mickey.
Burgess Meredith is a great character actor from, way back in the 40s and 50s. I think it was at least 2 of the most famous Twilight Zones you could think of. And several, of course, played the Penguin in the Batman series, it was fantastic. But yeah, unfortunately, he meets his end in this movie, which is sad, but we'll talk about that. Okay. Talia Shire shows up as Adrian, his wife, again in this movie, and she's a very pliant kind of character in this movie. She, doesn't really push back too much against Rocky, and unlike the first 2 movies, she's just a little bit more in the shadows, I think. But She was fantastic in The Godfather, playing Connie. Is one of the Corleone siblings.
Bafang Yu.
Yeah, she has a little trouble with guys in Godfather. If you don't remember, first one is killed off at the end, and the second one, Merle. No one really knows what Merle does to make his money. Apparently.
I don't know this Merle.
Exactly. But yes, as her famous roles were, being in Three Godfathers and being in at least 4 of the Rockies. I don't know if she was in Rocky 5 or not. You have to look that up for yourself. Is she part? See, that's
I think she's a Coppola.
Is she part? Okay, I didn't know if she was a direct daughter or. I
guess doing a film podcast, we should probably know that. But
we should. Justin, I pride myself on not looking this stuff up. So
okay,
I should be able to remember that, but I don't. I'm sorry.
Okay.
We have Burt Young as the brother of Adrian and he's a former associate trainer for Rocky. He gets kind of fired in the second one, and then it's weird because this Rocky 3 is not really a standalone movie because it starts off showing Paulie.
Yeah.
Being really angry and drunk, and you're like, what's his problem? Who is this guy?
Yeah.
So it's kind of weird. It's not explained more in the third movie, like who this guy is in the first, but he plays the brother-in-law that, eventually it's just kind of a side character, but he's, he ends up working again for Rocky in the Corner. And then you have Hulk Hogan appearing as a wrestler. This, Thunder Lips. I think we mentioned before in another podcast is a fantastic wrestler appearance in the movie.
Big fan, yeah.
Yeah. They describe him as almost being 7 foot tall, which is kind of interesting because I think that probably does him a little bit of
more like 6'5". More like 6'5", yeah.
And then you had the antagonist in this movie. He's kind of a cardboard cutout of a villain, but Mr.T.
Yeah.
shows up as Clubber Lang, the South Side Slugger.
Yeah.
Clubber. Yeah, I love that. And he's is this pre A-Team or post A-Team?
I think this was after his.
Okay, so he was a known entity.
No, he just did a run in Shakespeare in the Park, I think, and then
then you brought him in, and said, you were really good as
Othello.
Iago and Othello. But you know what? You need to shave your head into a mohawk and put feathers in your ear. then you can be a real Shakespearean actor. But he's as a villain. You get all the greatest quotes in the movie come from Clubber.
Oh yeah,
Mr. T.
Yeah.
I pity the fool.
And then the last one I'll mention is Apollo Creed, who's the guy that Rocky Balboa knocks out to get the championship. And it's interesting how he appears in this movie to help out Rocky and as his corner man and train him. And Carl Weathers, this is a guy I wish did more movies. He's so smooth. It's like a Billy D. Williams kind of effect.
Right,
it's like
right.
This guy why didn't this guy appear more places? Because every time he shows up in a movie like Predator or even The Mandalorian or he made an appearance in a couple of Adam Sandler movies and kind of stole the scenes. It's like he's a really smooth, suave guy.
Well, to his credit, this is one of the few media appearances where he kept both of his arms intact. How many characters have lost their arms in more than one movie?
Yeah, I know, right? Oh, that's a good one to look up. And other than that, you have that's pretty much your cast. I can't, there are a couple other odds and end people like Dennis James making a weird appearance. If anybody knows who that is, then kudos.
Okay.
And Leroy Neiman. Why that pop artist was, and he shows up with some of his paintings, luckily enough. How about that?
And 18-inch cigar.
The mustache though, come on.
Oh, wonderful.
You talk about a guy who just like worships Salvador Dali. It's like, oh yeah, that's me.
Yeah. We get it. You're an artist.
We get it, yes. And and the aforementioned Frank Stallone, Sylvester's brother, that sings a couple of songs. I'm sorry, he warbles a couple of songs in this movie.
He's got several songs on the soundtrack. But
I know. Pushing was my favorite though.
Great song.
Oh my gosh, what a fantastic song. I mean that.
That song needs a hook, don't you think? I think he says pushing 17 times in a 90-second song.
Yeah. He made Salt and Pepper blush.
Well, let's let's save a little bit for later for that guy.
Okay.
But, let's
Cool.
kind of get. So thank you, Mike. Just a few movie notes. This came out about 3 or 4 years after Rocky II, came out in 1979 to so much critical acclaim. The statue that they unveil in the movie here, that's still in front of the Philadelphia Museum of Arts. I'm sure you've seen that before, Mike.
Yes, right.
In your globetrotting. The music, it tends to get the most accolades from this movie. Survivor's Eye of the Tiger. I think everybody grew up with that. Stallone tried to get the rights to You're the Best by Joe Esposito.
Oh, wow.
But he failed to, and then
Karate Kid, man.
Quickly captured by the Karate Kid. He also tried to get the rights to Another One Bites the Dust, but did not succeed. You mentioned Thunder Lips, played by Terry Bollea, a.k.a. Hulk Hogan. This is before Hulk Hogan was a thing, really.
Yeah.
As you mentioned kind of previously, Mike, Hulk was fired by Vince McMahon Sr. For having the nerve to take on this movie. Old Vince didn't take kindly to things that weren't under his purview. He was quickly rehired by young Vince Jr. and brought him back to the WWF at the time, and he became a legend shortly thereafter. Yeah. So this was the film debut for him and Mr. T. And oddly enough, it's the only Oscar-nominated film for either one of those guys.
Wow. That is shocking.
Yeah.
I want to also mention, like, as a cast, you got to think of the music for this movie, that Bill Conti kind of music that comes from the first Rocky movies, and it goes through the whole movie. It's almost a cast member in itself. It's such a strong, not only just the Eye of the Tiger, but all the familiar Rocky songs you hear. He plays them exactly where they are in the other movies, and it just is like there's something about it. Even hearing a high school band play "Gonna Fly Now" is kind of funny to listen to.
It gets the goosebumps going even to this day. I don't know why.
Yeah,
I think that's why I have such an admiration for this movie. I guess it just imprinted on me back then.
True.
So this movie came out in 1982, May 28th. Some competing movies in the theater around that time. We started out May with Conan the Barbarian, not to be confused with Conan the Librarian. That's a joke, right? Also, the movie Annie, starring
Tim Curry.
Tim Curry, yeah. And Carol Burnett and others. I had to go see that with my younger sisters several times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. So this movie came out at the end of the month. And the following week, actually, the Poltergeist Star Trek II came out. Then the week after that, E.T. came out in Grease 2. So that was pretty much it for the old Rocky III box office. But again, just like we mentioned, Mike, all these iconic movies just coming out one after another. Just a very special era in our film history there.
It's a great summer.
Yeah, on the music scene, Mike, we had this is the summer of Ebony and Ivory.
Oh, yeah.
And you had Jay Giles' band, Centerfold. Was big. On the rock charts, you had Van Halen covering Pretty Woman, Roy Orbison's classic. We had 38 Special, was all caught up in you.
Hold on loosely.
Little girl. You're the one that got me down on my knees, Mike.
All right.
And we were all working for the weekend with Mike Reno and Loverboy. Those are the big songs that summer.
Yes, we were.
Yeah.
Golly.
Too bad the radio was broke, huh? What a shame. On the TV screen, we were watching 60 Minutes, like always. We've been watching 60 Minutes forever. Other shows that were big hits in this time were Dallas, MASH, and Magnum P.I. Not to be confused with the heavily mulleted Tom Selleck doppelganger Magnum T.A., professional wrestler that crashed his Porsche in 1986, not too far from here, Mike, about 20 miles away on Sardis Road to Charlotte. Remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Ended his career. But dynamite guy, great guy. So, there you go. I think our fans are probably hoping that we don't go on talking about wrestling too much.
Hey, wait, I want to mention to our fans that I heard Nikita Koloff do a radio show this last Saturday. He's the Born Again Christian, has a Christian like national show. I was like, wow, it's Koloff. Yeah. He's from Chester, South Carolina, right below us.
Yeah, and that's odd because those two had a running feud in the NWA for about 20 years. So.
That's what made me think of. Oh my gosh, he's not really Russian either, by the way. Just want to throw that out there.
You want to ask me who the 30th president of the United States was? I don't know, but I know that. Some other things going on in pop culture. This was the year the Epcot Center opened, and you could get a day pass for $15.
Oh my gosh!
I think the one-day admission price now currently stands at $164 a day, depending on what package you get. But what's interesting about Epcot Center is that it's the number one leader for deaths at Disney resorts.
Oh my gosh!
It holds open tally of 15 deaths on a total 64 among Disney properties. Most of them natural causes, however, but there you go.
Is it after watching Captain EO for like 100 times?
That was like 80% of the deaths, yes. Mike.
Okay.
Well done. Other interesting, yet morbid facts. This was also the year around my neck of the woods. It was discovered several vials of Tylenol were laced with cyanide and distributed to local pharmacies. And of course, urban legend gives way to every kid in my middle school telling me he was about ready to have a Tylenol when he found that on the news. So I just had one right in my mouth, ready to eat it. Yeah, so spared death. Yeah, we heard that before.
Yeah, it was our Tide Pod scandal.
Yeah,
when we were kids.
Yeah, but that was a real thing, as opposed to like razor blades and Halloween candy. Yeah, I think it killed 11 people. In fact. So,
yeah. And
right.
They had another one like in Washington State, I think too. It was like
right.
Same kind of stuff. Jeez.
All right, who's ready to laugh?
Yep. And just so our fans know, we saw how bleak Philadelphia looked in 12 Monkeys, and we wanted to have a little better picture of Philadelphia, so we picked Rocky 3 for you.
Yeah, it paints it in a much better light. So
yeah.
All right, Mike. So we set the stage now. I think there's nothing left to do but to get started. So if you're ready, hit the button. So our movie kind of opens up with the United Artists logo and just the inside baseball. That was designed by Sandy DeVore, who's an acquaintance of show regular Aaron, who's also a graphic designer. Just here you go. He knows the guy that designed that logo. So hats off to Aaron for that tidbit. But it kind of starts with this montage, Mike.
Oh, yeah.
We kind of flash back to Rocky 2, where Rocky's fighting his title match his rematch, actually, against Apollo Creed. And he wins, and you get that "Yo, Adrian, I did it," and then the music just kicks in right away.
Yeah.
It's almost as iconic as the Jaws music, right? You just kind of know what you're getting when you hear that music. And you go into another montage. This was the Eye of the Tiger montage, which is great. So
that's my favorite part of the movie.
And this is just kind of a blended images of Rocky's numerous title defenses, his media appearances.
His commercials, man. The credit card commercial, the Nikon, Tony Ramos. He's on the Muppet Show. Yeah,
I think they co-opted a lot of Sylvester Stallone's actual footage when he was on the Muppet Show and things like that. But the idea here is they're trying to they're intercut scenes where you see Mr.T doing the strenuous, doing the strenuous groaning, screaming training program alone in a dirty cellar, just kind of planting to see that there's trouble on the way. And then it kind of develops. They introduce a bit like you mentioned, Mike. This a small little subplot involving Paulie being resentful of Rocky's success, feeling that he was instrumental in Rocky getting his place, but he gets drunk and throws his bottle of Jameson into the Rocky pinball machine. He gets picked up by the police, and there's a little scene there where they kind of sort it all out, and he hires him back on, and everything's fine. So we kind of progress to the next scene. This is the Thunder Lips scene. So Rocky, they start out the movie.
Thank you for skipping the Pillow Talk song between him and Adrian. I remember even as a kid thinking, groaning, thinking, and please end this.
That's when you go to the bathroom. You go get some Kool-Aid, right?
Yes.
But there's this. He's part of this charity boxing wrestling match where he faces off against Thunder Lips, played by Hulk Hogan. And it's an incredibly long scene for the relevance of the plot here, Mike, but it goes on for quite some time. And it's essentially, Thunder Lips coming down, beating the crap out of Rocky. And Rocky doesn't really appreciate, wrestling. And as he's wailing punches on him, he keeps saying, "It's all fake, meatball. It's all fake, meatball." But Rocky, like he does always, he kind of flips the script and starts punching him. And, they put on a good show, and it ends up in a draw. And then when it's all over, as wrestlers will, account to, they kind of show their real side, and the act's over, and he says, "Well, this is part of the game," but he kind of humanizes himself, and they all take a Polaroid together.
Yeah, that's funny.
All right, so that next morning, they're headed to they're doing a award ceremony for Rocky in Philly, and this is where they kind of unveil the Rocky statue, that iconic thing that now sits in front of the museum, up the stairs that everybody's familiar with. And in the crowd, heckling him is Mr.T, Clubber Lang. And what triggers Clubber here is that Rocky gives an unannounced retirement announcement, says he's going to retire. And that triggers Mr.T to, I want my title shot. You're dodging me. And he starts accusing him of, fake, all his title defenses were setups, and, he's a paper champion. And, that sets Rocky off, and they kind of split and, leave the scene. But, Mr.T propositions Talia Shire, which I thought was really funny. Because that's how you get to a boxer, right? You make fun of his wife.
Yes.
So, yeah. So they kind of break out, and then there's a little confrontation there where, Rocky kind of confronts Mick and says, "Hey, what was he talking about setups?" And Mickey more or less admits that, they kind of
cans. He found nothing.
Yeah, they weren't real challengers, but they were just, they were handpicked to help him kind of sustain the title. And that really kind of gives Rocky an identity crisis, because he feels that his defense was a lie and all that kind of thing. So it's an existential crisis for Rocky, because he's such a critical thinker, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
And then so triggered by the events the previous day, Rocky says, I want to fight this guy, and Mickey says he'll kill you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You won't last 3 rounds.
Yeah.
You got civilized. He's hungry. Yeah, I love
saying
that.
He's concerned for Rocky because he knows Clubber Lang will kill him. But because their long-term relationship, Mickey ultimately concedes and agrees to train for one last fight. And then we kind of transition to another cringe montage scene, Mike, and this was kind of led by Frank Stallone, singing the disco epic "Pushin'." I counted, Mike. There's 155 words in this song.
Oh my gosh!
and the longest verse is 5 words. But anyway, there's instead of training at a regular gym, Rocky, in a demonstration of his hubris, rents a ballroom and has a party, and it sells tickets and selling merch, and has a disco band playing in the background, and ladies all over the place kissing everybody, and this is all intercut with Mr. T hanging from a sewer pipe doing pull-ups.
Oh yeah.
So it's the freight train's heading our way.
Yeah, you talk about a movie not holding back its punches.
Yeah, let's just call this one a little telegraphed. So we get to the big first fight, right? So it's the stage is set, and as they're going out in the hallway to the ring, Mr. T kind of starts a little ruckus with them in the hall. He shoves Mickey into the wall, triggering a heart attack. And Mickey has to be taken to the trainer's room, and he tells Rocky he's going to be fine just to go out there and win the fight. And that just puts Rocky in the wrong headspace, but he goes out there and fights anyway. Before they start the fight, they announce Apollo Creed, who's sitting ringside, and he kind of goes up and shakes hands with everybody. And Mr. T kind of throws his hand, disrespects him, so he don't want to be seen with the has-been. And then so Apollo Creed is kind of watching this whole thing go down, and it's just a massacre. Rocky essentially gets clobbered in the second round, and it doesn't really put up much of a fight at all. It makes matters worse. After the fight, he goes in and sees that Mick is dead. That's not good either. So now we get a second montage. This is a sad montage, Mike, where all the bad stuff happens. They play the Rocky theme slow in a minor key, so it sounds really sad.
And he has to walk to a bridge and look around, look down, look sad.
He looks at a statue.
He throws his motorcycle helmet as a statue.
So he's wallowing around in self misery, and he kind of goes to this empty gym, and oddly enough, Apollo Creed's there waiting for him. And he kind of reads in the riot act and says, "Hey, you know what? you got your butt kicked, and I know what that feels like because you did it to me, and I think I can train you if you're interested. I think we can beat this guy if you'll accept my training. And it doesn't take very much convincing for Rocky to do that. He says, "I don't want to. I'm done." Like the first sentence, and then 30 seconds later, he says, "Okay."
Yeah.
So
there's literally three faces he does. He has the mournful, sad face. Then he has the confused face, and then it's the okay face.
So Apollo's idea is they take him to, I think, Watts area, L.A., right?
Yeah.
So he packs up the family, including Paulie, and they all go to L.A.
I'm glad they brought Paulie.
Paulie's critical, mission
he had
critical.
to come along just to make a couple of comments about jungle music and these people.
Let's just some casual racism out there just to make everything happy. So, so you get yet another montage here, Mike. This is the.
Is this four montages so far?
I've lost track, but we got a couple more to go still. But this is the his heart's not in it training montage, right? He's Apollo kind of does some unconventional training for Rocky, which includes a lot of footwork, a lot of bouncing, a lot of flexibility, switching hands, jab, 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 and Rocky's more of a brawler, not a boxer, and he's trying to retrain him to defeat Clubber Lang, tactically at least. And Rocky's heart isn't in it, and they do a lot of racing on the beach, Mike.
But what is it about guys on beaches in movies? You think about this. You got to think about this movie and
Point Break,
Top Gun. They're playing volleyball. Yeah, Point Break. They're playing tag football, whatever. It's just interesting that men bond on running through sand. It's kind of.
I don't know.
Okay.
All I do is sunstroke on the beach. But in terms to increase his dexterity and flexibility, he challenges Creed. Apollo challenges Rocky to do wind sprints. And there's several times he just loses. But they felt compelled to show several close-ups of the upsettingly small shorts in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the tank tops. Why do they expose their midriff?
The midriff. Yeah.
I didn't need to see that.
I think they were trying to accentuate the muscles in their upper thighs, but unfortunately, people's eyes often wander elsewhere, and super slow-mo is not a good thing. But we'll move on.
It's certainly better than the plastic cod pieces they're wearing at the end of the movie. But that's
true. Well, yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. All right, so as he loses this final race, Apollo looks back and sees he sees that Rocky just quit. He gave up, and he turns to Adrian and Paul. He says, "It's over. He's done. It's all over." And then as he's sitting out there looking at the sea, Adrian does what she does, and she's the voice of reason. She has a special talk with him and describes his career, and she has a special talk with him and decides I'm all for you retiring, but I've never known you to quit, and if you don't go out on your own terms, you'll regret it the rest of your life. That just
maybe not now, but tomorrow or soon.
Yeah, and that little pep talk from the one person that he knows truly cares about him just kind of motivates him. And then we go to the cue the music, Mike, and that's when it
it's gonna fly now. Cue it.
We get the music, and then we go into another happy montage. This is the real training where he's doing the butterfly stroke in the pool, and he's hitting the heavy bag, and he's hitting the rapid bag, and the speed punching, and he throws Paulie in the pool because it's really fun, and he ends up beating Apollo in the race, and they start hugging in the waves. And then Mikey does one of my favorite things: is it does the still frame scene shot.
Oh yes,
raising his hands in Apollo's arms.
That's so 80s.
And you get the bell ring. You get ding ding ding. Ding, ding. And we cut to Madison Square Garden for the big rematch, Mike.
Like that.
Yeah, and I don't care. We'll make fun of this movie as much as we want, but I couldn't stop watching this movie. I just love this whole fight at the end. Yeah. Even though I know what happens. I know almost every punch, but he essentially does kind of a rope-a-dope strategy where he kind of just suckers Clubber Lang in, and he exhausts him by throwing his punches because Clubber's just demolished his opponents. They know he's never gone more than 7 rounds, so he decides just to outlast and outsurvive. And he does this thing where where Paulie notes out that he's not getting killed, he's getting mad. He starts teasing Clubber Lang and just really does like I said, a rope-a-dope strategy. And he ultimately just kind of knocks Clubber out. And It's just an amazing little victory there at the end, and you're just so happy that
Yeah.
Rocky won this one. It's just, it's sappy and it's sentimental and it's tropey, but it was just a fun. I just cheered for some reason in my brain when I saw that. So
Right.
yeah. So the movie kind of ends with Rocky saying, "Yo, Adrian, we did it," that kind of thing, and there's a little denouement at the end where as Mike mentioned, the two boxers are in an empty gym wearing enormous cod pieces, which I think are sparring belts, right, Mike? So you don't get accidentally hit by low blows.
It must be something like that. I'd never seen them use anywhere else, but yeah, it must be like instead of using like a foam belt, they must have tried to go with the plastic exposed like
Yeah.
it's almost like a jock on the outside kind of look.
Yeah, it was like American Gladiator auditions or something. But he had always had a running joke about "you owe me a favor," and he would never divulge what that was, and the favor was actually that he would get him in the ring one more time, and I'm guessing like kick his ass, Mike, for beating him up in the first place. So the movie ends on a these guys throwing punches at each other's head, and they freeze frame right at the point of impact, and then you get
a Leroy Neiman painting. Also,
yeah, you get a 9-minute montage of credits back with the backdrop of Leroy Neiman paintings, which I thought was kind of clever. So
there you go.
Yeah, so it's just a thrilling, fun movie, and just as fun as I remember it being. So
yeah.
Just nuts.
It's funny while we were saying this stuff. We really like this movie, and I know we give the opposite impression. Just picking out little things and kind of nitpicking. Yeah. But overall, it's just I know we'll get to more on that, but it's don't take us the wrong way.
Yeah. All right, so talking about awards and accolades for this movie, this had a $12 million opening, which back then wasn't really that bad. It ended up making $125 million domestically, and another $3,500 worldwide with a UK release. That's all it was distributed for with the UK, so which is odd. It got several nominations, all of them for the song. It got an Oscar nomination for the song "Eye of the Tiger," but it lost to. You want to guess to what it lost to, Mike?
In '82.
Yeah. Pop quiz, hotshot.
Pop quiz, hotshot. No, I don't. I wouldn't remember.
I'll give you a hint. Lou Gossett Jr.
Oh, Up Where We Belong.
There you go. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
I didn't know that. I didn't know Officer and Gentleman was '82. Yeah, another good movie from '82.
Another good movie. Yeah. We got nowhere else to go, Mike.
I got nowhere else to go.
Unfortunately, Mr.T got a nomination from the Razzies. But he lost to Pia Zadora in the movie Butterfly. So Mr. T pulled it out. This movie spawned essentially 6 sequels. You had Rocky 4 and 5. Rocky 5 was a bit of a letdown, and Rocky Balboa came out in 2006, which was kind of a patchwork to make the finale a little bit better. It wasn't too bad of a movie. Yeah. Then it spawned all 3 Creed movies: Creed 1, Creed 2, and Creed 3.
So Rocky 3 didn't copy Creed 3, okay, because they look very similar.
Well, there's not too much.
The trailer looked like okay. Just making sure.
There's not a whole lot of source material there. It's the one where they fight and they don't think they're going to win, but they win.
Right. Yeah. I think Creed has a lot of money, but he becomes soft. Yeah. And there's this up and coming guy who's really tough and mean, and then he loses to him. Yeah. And then he has to find himself back in his old gym. And then he comes back and then he beats the bad guy at the end. That's interesting.
Sounds familiar, yeah.
Sounds very familiar. Okay.
It also spawned a Rocky video game for the PlayStation 2. And I only mention this because there's a cheat code where you can unlock Mickey to play to fight as Mickey. And I'm not going to say it's the funniest thing I've ever seen, but it's really close.
Oh my gosh!
And this is the aged shirtless Burgess Meredith with his little beanie on, punching. Great stuff. YouTube it, you'll love it. But that's kind of the legacy. I mean, everybody knows Rocky movies, and I think the Creed movies kind of give precedence to it's a testament to what kind of staying power this has, and it kind of introduced that whole storyline and that canon to a new audience, and you can't go wrong. I mean, there's a lot of stuff wrong with those movies, but I mean, everybody enjoys them, so shut up. So let's talk about on a personal level, Mike. So what's going through our grumpy meter? Why don't you go first? Kind of talk about your impressions for the first time you saw the movie way back when, and your most recent watch.
Oh yeah, when I was a kid, I saw this, like I said, twice at the theater here in Rock Hill, which is now a clothing store. But it was just I loved it. That it's everything. Like it's kind of like kids in the 50s and 60s used to watch like westerns. One
Yeah.
guy had a black hat, one guy had a white hat. They fought each other. The white hat guy won. Hooray!
Yep.
It's that
Just
kind of.
elemental. Yeah.
It is that simple an idea, and it works so well in this movie. Add in some good music, characters that you've seen in previous movies, um, a cardboard cutout of a villain. I can't. It's it surprises me when you say he was nominated for a Razzie because he did what he was supposed to do. Some of the stuff he was saying in the movie, saying what could have been dialogue that came out of Muhammad Ali's mouth. Some of the braggadocio kind of talk and stuff. I mean,
Sure. Yeah.
he was what he was. He's just supposed to be the villain, and he played it to a T. Um, there's a lot of stereotypes in this movie, but it really works. And again, it's one of those movies we've talked about this on another podcast or two about. We watch it now, 40 years later, and kind of like you can kind of make fun of it in a way because you feel like you've seen it now 50, 60 times, but
Yeah.
it's hard to unwrap it and watch it in a vacuum of being in 1982 again, which I would love to do, but you can't,
Yeah.
obviously,
Yeah.
after seeing so many other movies that must have copied this movie over and over again, copied that formula. It's like it works. There's too many anti-hero movies and gray areas in movies now where
Yeah.
you
And
do
I
something
think
like
that
this, it
I think the
works.
boxing environment leads itself to the underdog so much better than
Yeah,
anything because it's a sole like personal one-on-one thing.
it is,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
it is always, this like you said earlier, is tropey in a way, but yeah, you
Yeah.
have the typical sports angle where it's a guy who's at his top, he gets a humbling, and he comes down to the bottom, then he rises back up, and he's back on the streets
Yeah.
facing his rival.
Stop it.
But there you go. Like
Copyright.
like I said earlier, we nitpick, Frank Stallone sings silly songs and stuff, but overall, you watch this hour and 40-minute movie, and it's enjoyable still. So
Yeah.
I would highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'm with you there, Mike. It's as I mentioned, as it was always a comfort movie for me. When I saw it my first time, probably when I was 13, 14 years old, it was just. I think because we're males, I think because we can't talk about our feelings, we can talk about sports. That supplants one for the other, and I think that we can appreciate things like this much more. And it was just on a basic childlike level, all
Yeah.
those ambitions are where they were, and I just really enjoyed it. Watching it again, a couple of days ago, um, it just brought me right back to that 15-year-old kid that thought he
Right.
was thought he would grow up to be a boxer and it just could solve all his problems with the
Yeah.
with a fist and an attitude and things like that. And I just miss the theme of this movie is unique in a way because it was cinematic. And maybe this is a little bit grumpy here, guys, but I think if this movie was like attempted to be made now, it would be like more MMA or something like that. I think there's a regal sense to boxing that's no longer prevalent. It's when we grew up, boxing was like, it was an event. It was like,
Yeah.
maybe it was,
That's
because of
another
Ali
thing.
and Foreman, Frazier, and it was the golden
Yeah.
era. But
That's another thing you can't like go back in time and
yeah,
recreate. Is
we
that
could watch.
feeling of a
We could,
boxing match.
yeah. There was no fervor than a heavyweight boxing match. I mean, that everybody got together to watch those things, and that's when you could watch it on free television with Howard Cosell on Sunday night. Now
Yeah.
now if you want to see heavyweight fight, if anybody cares about boxing, I couldn't tell you who the heavyweight champion of the world is, but if you do, you're going to pay $79 for a pay per view, and it's going to start at 2 a.m. in the morning, and it just kind of lost its. I don't know. It was just kind of, well, that's just us being grumpy, but I just really enjoyed this movie, from start to finish, and it just all the things that I liked about it as 15-year-old, I still like them now, and
Yeah. I was just thinking that this movie made today would be about 2 hours and 45 minutes,
yep.
probably.
Uh-huh.
The parts like where he's getting over the grief of Mickey dying, or he's trying to figure out where he really wants to box. And in this movie is, Talia Shire talks to him for a couple of minutes and say,
Yeah.
hey, man, come on. If you
Yeah.
want, you want this. And then to get over Mickey dying, he walks around, drives around Philadelphia on his
Yeah.
motorcycle. I mean, it's summed up quickly.
Yeah.
It just breezes right along,
And the montages do the rest.
Yeah, is that montages are magical
They're
methods
wonderful.
to use. And
We make fun of them all the time, but they're
Yeah.
brilliant because they take hours worth of exposition and condense it into a little music video.
Oh yeah.
Okay, we all get it. All right.
Yeah.
This is a transitional piece from one to the other.
That's right. Little 11-year-old Justin and 11-year-old Mike, want to see this. We just skip over that. We don't care.
Yeah,
well, Mickey died. Oh, whatever. Get over it, man. Go punch that Mohawk guy.
Exactly.
Just
Punch the Mohawk guy.
Wrap it up in a 2-minute montage and get on with it, man.
Yeah. So yeah, just an amazing story. So I'm glad it came back to us. So speaking of coming back, we always try to end the show with a thematic element that we kind of discuss, and this one here is obviously the trope of the sports comeback. We always think is interesting. Sports movies in general are pretty hack, but every once in a while you get a few things that kind of stand out. And so we thought for this week's installment of You Just Made the List, Pal, we talk about our favorite sports comebacks movies, good or bad. So Mike, I'll hand you the ball. See what I did?
All right. Nice.
You get to go first. Tell us one of your favorites.
Actually, instead of a ball, you'll be handing me handlebars for this one.
Okay.
For 1979's Breaking Away.
Great movie. Yeah.
Yes, one of my. This is. I'm not gonna say a sleeper movie because it's so old now, but I love that one. It's another movie they showed on HBO a lot that I watched as a kid. About bicycle riding and set in a small town, Indiana. Well, actually, it was in Bloomington, Indiana, where the university is. But it centers around this guy who just loves bicycle riding and loves the idea of being in the Tour de France. And he comes from a lower class kind of family that everybody works in the quarry, and he's with these other kids that include I think Dennis Quaid and Daniel Stern and Jackie Earle Haley and his little gang. The main actor is Dennis Christopher, who kind of had a weird career. Thinking about him now, it's like, where did he go? But yeah, it's a great movie. He plays this guy who's better than everybody at riding a bike. He gets gifted this fine Italian bike to ride. And he admires all these foreigners that can ride the Tour de France. He ends up being in one of these competitions. Then he tries to ride up the Italians. They knock him over and they hurt his leg. And he gets despondent and doesn't want to do bicycling anymore. And they convince him to do the big competition at the climax of the movie, which is the Indy 500, but it's like a bicycle relay
the
race.
little 500. Yeah, it's a real thing.
Yeah. And he's convinced to do it. He does most of the race on his own until he hurts himself, and then his three buddies have to race in for him, and they stink, but they at least keep it in the race. And his comeback run at the very end, where he beats all these other racers, is just fantastic. And it's a real good comeback kind of movie. Like I say, it's kind of a subdued movie. It's not over the top kind of Hollywood production, but really good. I would highly recommend Breaking Away.
All right, that's very good. Well, I'm going to go even more sappy than that one, which is a great movie. I thank you for bringing it up. I forgot about that one. I'm going to go with The Natural from 1984.
Oh, yes.
So I've confessed several times to being completely romantic about baseball, and I mean, this is about as sappy as you can get. But Robert Redford plays Roy Hobbs, who's this kind of phenom kid who's just got this God-given talent, set in the early 30s, I think. Yeah. And it's kind of a morality tale. He kind of falls into he falls for a femme fatale, and he lets his urges get the best of him. I think it's Barbara Hershey.
Yeah, she's really weirdo.
Yeah, but she ends up shooting him in the stomach and kind of ending his career. And then the movie kind of just does a little time jump, and then it focuses on him trying to make a comeback as a player in his mid-30s. No one's ever heard of, but it's that this amazing fictional, albeit rise of this character and his career with the New York Knights, and he just literally just comes out of nowhere and just becomes this home run hitting machine. And he's got this bat that he carved out of a tree.
Wonder Boy.
Carved out of a tree struck by lightning. Come on. that scene where he hits the home run. He
hits the light. The lights go out, and they're like,
you get
flat.
that
Yeah.
Randy Newman soundtrack. Everybody knows this stuff, but that's when you talk about. Again, it sounds corny, but the magic of movies. When you see that
Yeah.
scene, it's kind of hard not to be really impressed by that. But that was my next one, Mike. The Natural, great comeback story,
Yes.
1984.
Good one.
All right, what's up next?
All right. I'm going to stay with baseball. Let's do a League of Their Own.
Oh, look at you. Yeah.
Yeah. Look at me. It's it was a movie about the 40s, and when a lot of the men were off the war, they decided to try a league of women that were left behind that wanted to form their own baseball league. And a movie with some very talented actresses in it. And you have Tom Hanks as kind of a manager of them, as a ex ball player. It's one of those movies that if it was made today would probably be a little bit different, but it's a great movie about women kind of creating their own league, and there's no like denigrating of guys in the movie. It was really well done. I love even Madonna was pretty good in it Rosie O'Donnell of
all the way May. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, and this is a fun little movie that doesn't try to politicize itself, and it's one of those movies, I need to watch it again because I probably would still enjoy it, and I would recommend that. Like I say, it would still hold up pretty well, and it still kind of delivers like a girl power message, but muted in a way. It's enjoyable.
Okay. Well, I'm going to go a little bit darker with my next pick. This is the movie Slapshot from 1977. Kind of a cult classic for all guys especially guys that like hockey. The quick answer: this is a raunchy 70s comedy for guys, but there's a lot more to it. There's a lot more subtext to it. Everybody knows about the Hanson brothers and with the weird glasses and beating up people and all that kind of thing. But a lot of people don't know this was written by a woman, Nancy Dowd, who also won an Oscar for penning the screenplay Coming Home a couple years later.
Oh, wow.
But her brother Ned was a minor league hockey player, and she just kind of she wanted to capture the futility. If anybody's not seen the movie, it's one of Paul Newman's best, I think. But he plays an aging superstar of a minor league hockey team in New York that's kind of on its way out and can't draw any fans, and this is kind of like the last place for any people to play, any where dreams go to die type thing. But Newman does this entire movie where during the entire movie he convinces the team to play well because he's convinced these guys that the owner is going to move the team to a new city, and he just inspires all this confidence to where this lowly down and out team start to win again. And it's just more about just fighting the futility of their situation and just kind of pulling together. There's several funny jokes, several raunchy lines, but it's just one of those things that if you get beyond like the frat house part of this movie, that it's really kind of a neat character study in that kind of subculture. So my next one would be Slapshot from 1977.
Nice.
Not Slapshot 2 with Stephen Baldwin.
Oh no, I forgot that came out.
Yeah, I'm sorry I had to remind you about that one.
That's okay. I just wish the Hanson brothers hadn't been in it.
All right, Mike. So we're up to our last pick. Maybe a couple honorable mentions too.
Oh, let's do some honorable mentions here. We got the Bad News Bears, of course, which is everybody's favorite comeback baseball movie. Days of Thunder. You have Cole Trickle, who's this arrogant SOB driver that comes in the NASCAR, thinks he's all that, and gets his comeuppance in a crash with Rowdy Yates, and then ends up coming back to win. He had to get over an injury, and it's Nicole Kidman that helps him. So there you go.
As previously covered by Grumpy Nostalgia. Go out and check it out, guys.
There you go. Longest Yard, a good football movie where ex-cons current cons create a football team and are able to beat the guards. Great Burt Reynolds movie from '74. I'm not counting the Adam Sandler movie, that doesn't exist. And then but my favorite one, football comeback movie would be We Are Marshall. Kind of recent. I hated to go to a movie that was post 2000, but this is from 2007, I want to say, maybe 2006.
Yeah.
But it's about the Marshall University football program who almost the whole program was decimated in an airplane crash in 1970. And the movie is about, the Matthew McConaughey is the coach that comes back to just try to basically from the ashes of that create a football team. And it's about how they win, not only just come together as a team, but actually win a game or two. And that's just a victory for, any program that has to come back from that. And really inspirational movie. Well done. And, as far as an historical kind of movie, which, I like to kind of analyze, wow, did this really happen? And it's true to its story. And like I say, it's one of those movies that even as a guy, you kind of want to have a couple of tears after you watch it.
Yeah, that's a tough,
fantastic.
Subject matter is really tough there. That's
yeah.
All right, that's a good one. All right, my last pick, again, I'm going to go back to baseball because I can't help myself. And it's more of a recent one, so forgive me. But I'm going to go with Moneyball from 2011. It's the story of Oakland A's general manager Billy Beane trying to rebuild the franchise after his top three players go sign with the big clubs in Boston and New York. And what I like best about this one, it's a comeback story, but it's not a Cinderella story. It kind of falls short, and I appreciate the realism of it. But they get put in a situation where Oakland's got no money, and if you see the current situation, even today they're drawing like 300 fans for a Major League Baseball game. It's just the team can't be supported in that town, but they did what previous teams had never done before, and they used analytics to try to build their team. Hence the term Moneyball. They tried to find the players that statistically would match up on paper that could replace the talent that they had. And of course, no one thinks it's going to work, and it doesn't at first. They spend the majority of the first half of the season just kind of floundering. But the statistical analysis, the guys, but they started. The character named Peter Brand, I think, is a real guy, but I think it was a composite of a lot of people that kind of worked on that team. They bought enough players that had statistically unique skills that replicated real players, and they essentially put together this playoff caliber team with, I think they used the phrase in the movie, the misfit toys, teams that players that teams wouldn't even look at. So it's just an inspiring story, and about how, these underdogs came back. And what I like best about it is they didn't win the World Series. They get to the playoffs and they get swept, and they kind of dismiss the whole thing. See, the theme is, analytics doesn't work, because I just love how it just kind of sold it short. But it leaves you with this hope. And the hope is represented by the last scene where the owner of the Red Sox asks Brad Pitt, who plays Billy Beane, to come across country and interview a job, and he slides an offer across the table to him to be the manager of the Boston Red Sox, which is, Premier League team. And Brad declines. Billy Beane declines because he wants to win his way. He doesn't want to go back. So he stuck to his principles, and, so I just love that movie. It was poignant, and it was just, it was a baseball movie, but it was more about, family and fighting the odds and teamwork, and the dynamic of the team. And a real kind of inside baseball look I just thought was marvelous, and a great comeback story nonetheless. But so there you go, Moneyball, 2011. So a couple honorable mentions for you, Mike. The Fish That Saved Pittsburgh was one of my favorite ones.
Yes.
I think it was from 1976.
Stockard Channing.
Yeah, it had everything you needed. It had Stockard Channing as a...
It had a couple Globetrotters in it, too, right?
Yeah, it had Meadowlark Lemon and Dr. J and Jonathan Winters. Yeah. And the premise there is that their team's so bad they hire an astrologist.
Oh, jeez.
And she puts together a team made entirely of Pisces, Mike. And that team, that's the fish that actually saved that Pittsburgh team. Just a great movie. Like, check it out.
Great.
Another one I really liked was the documentary from 2005 called Murderball. It's about wheelchair rugby. What I like best about this one is it's about people that either that paraplegics that still want to compete, and they're cut down in their prime, and there's not 1 ounce of sentimentality or schmaltz. It is a hardcore, rough edge look at these guys, and they're not looking to be inspirational. They're just looking to get what they have of their life back, and they're coarse and they're crass, and the Murderball is that is an extremely violent game. And these guys, met their end through extremely violent circumstances, but they all have the willpower to kind of go through that. Just a very touching, poignant story that never kids itself into being anything emotional. It's just a true hardcore documentary. That's very. I've really never seen a documentary like it. So that's one of my honorable mentions. So there you go.
Cool.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's going to kind of wrap it up, guys. We kind of went a little long today talking about Rocky and other things. So if you're ever curious about what you just listened to, you can check out our show page. That's at Grumpy Nostalgia on Instagram. And if you want to send us an email outlining in great detail all the errors we made in previous shows or the current show, you can send us an email at nostalgiagrumps@gmail.com. Coming up on the next shows, we're going to have our guests are coming back. Molly and Aaron are coming back for the next couple of shows. Looking forward to having them. So we can't wait to get some more content out there to you guys. And there you go. So, Mike, that's going to kind of wrap it up. Anything else you want to say before we head out of here today?
I'm getting ready to eat a Punch Crunch candy bar. Do you have any predictions?
I don't sweat you. All right. So for Mike James, this is Justin, and we will see you again next time.
Get up, you son of a bitch! As Mickey loves you.